No disciple is superior to his teacher, but when fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. We look to the greats as examples and models for us to aspire to. If we think about sporting arenas, we know undeniably that the greatest basketball player to ever live is Michael Jordan. And he didn't get to be the greatest basketball player by just showing up on game day and making amazing shots and making amazing passes. But he practiced all the time. He dedicated and devoted his life to that skill and practice of good basketball playing and knowing the routes to take in a particular defensive schema. And so sometimes we look at them and think, well, I can do that, or I want to do that, but we're not keenly aware about what it takes to be an elite athlete. If we might change into the soccer arena for any soccer fans, the greatest soccer player undeniably, of course, is Lionel Messi. He's the best ever. Within the boxing arena, everyone knows undeniably the greatest boxer to ever have lived is Rocky Balboa. No doubt. And so we have these, models of excellence, but we don't often think about, what goes into being excellent in any particular endeavor. And Jesus is trying to get his disciples to pay attention and to remind them that a blind person cannot lead a blind person, that no disciple is superior to the teacher. Where Jesus has gone, we must go. And so Jesus gives many examples. And when we think about being disciples of Christ, often one of the things that comes to mind is, well, the healing that Jesus did. I want to be healed. I want to be made whole. Or maybe it's the miracles that Jesus performed that we want to witness. Lord, I have this particular friend or family member or my own personal infirmity or addiction or vice. Lord, heal me. Perform one of your miraculous works on me, one of your disciples. These are the very familiar aspects that we call upon God, and we are working towards, hopefully, being more like the teacher, being more like the master, Jesus. But we always have to keep in mind that Jesus completed his mission in the most mysterious of ways. He completed and accomplished his mission by suffering and dying on the cross. That is the fulfillment of the mission that Jesus was given by his Father, a test that the Father gave to his Son, sending him into the world to save us, of course, but to save us in a way that blew the minds of all the apostles, except that they saw him rise from the dead. We must keep that totality, the integrity of the life of Jesus together, because it's not just the miraculous healings and the miracles that were performed, the multiplication of loaves and fish, or the walking on the water, or raising from the dead Lazarus, or the Jairus' daughter. He did all those things, yes, and he continues to do miraculous things in the world. But because the devil is also real, and he's very wise, he often gets us to be focused on, if I'm suffering, if my loved one, dies, then God has forgotten me, or that this life is all that there is. No student is superior to the teacher. Where Jesus has gone, I must go. And so how does that look practically in our lives, right? We're here at Mass today, we're coming and worshiping, we're fulfilling our Sunday obligation, the duty that we have as Catholics, as Christians, to worship God, to keep the Sabbath day holy. For us, Sunday is the fulfillment, the resurrection of Christ, which we keep holy, we keep sacred. But is that all that I do in following Christ? He goes on in this very scripture passage today. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's own eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own? It is so easy. And not that this is something new in the age that we live in, but it's so easy, and maybe easier today, to just go on to social media and critique and criticize and point out the splinter in other people's eyes before taking that same kind of focus and turning it in the interior life? What are the areas of my own life that still need to be transformed, that still need to be corrected, that still need to be healed, so that I can be a better disciple, so that I can actually help my brother or sister in charity and in mercy and with patience? I mean, isn't God patient with us? Any sincere person who might do interior reflection, an examination of conscience, you will come very quickly to the realization that, wow, I have a lot to beg God for his mercy for. And he is so patient with me. The disciples struggled. They did not understand all the things that Jesus was teaching immediately. It was a gradual, understanding. It was a gradualness in their own hearts for that conversion to take place. One of the great gifts that I have as being the pastor here at Sacred Heart and coming to all the masses, really, there are always many children in the pews, and I love that. So thank you, parents, for doing the hard work of preparing your children, bringing them to Mass so that they can also learn and discover the great richness of the practice of our faith. But parents, what kind of example are you giving to your children? Are you speaking to them in ways that are teaching them how to speak? When you might correct them, treat your brother or sister better. Don't hit your brother. I heard that all the time. Nick, stop hitting Jacob. It took a while for me to learn that lesson. One of the things that helped me to learn that lesson was, the swift hand of my dad. That helped. So, parents, it's one thing to say, do what I tell you. It's another thing to give them that visible example, the witness of your faith. How do you treat your spouse? Because children are so keen to learn what it means to be husband and wife. I mean, do you treat your spouse with love, with kindness, with patience? Or do you treat your spouse with, a little bit of resentment? And maybe you try to hide it from the children, but children are very keen to and perceptive to pick up on very subtle, tones of voice. Maybe it's nothing that you say literally, but the tone of voice gives indication that, I'm upset with mom or dad. What kind of example are you teaching? What kind of teacher are you providing for your children? This past week, we had a wonderful showing of people who came to study with Father Matthew and I, Familiares Consortio, on the family. And one of the things that St. John Paul II, brought to the forefront of our minds is that parents are the first catechists and the primary catechists, teachers of their children. What are you teaching them? How are you teaching them? Do they know how to pray? Do they know the basic prayers of the church? The great wealth and treasure of the Our Father and the Hail Mary, the Glory Be. One of my favorite Marian prayers, the Memorare. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary. There are countless other beautiful, rich prayers that we have that your children, if they were to discover them, I can assure you would love them and would have tools so that when they might be afraid or when they might be anxious, they would turn to these prayers so that they can have a sense of confidence that God is at our side, that he doesn't abandon, and that even if he permits me to suffer or to struggle, he will be with me. And that is the ultimate test. Suffering, struggle, feeling as if God has abandoned or forgotten. Where Jesus has gone, I must go. How do you teach by the way you live? When you look to Christ and beg him for his mercy, beg him for grace, for help, are you keeping in mind that he ultimately fulfilled his mission on the cross? And then if I desire to be with him in his glory, I must also do as he said, in taking up my cross And Luke, in his version of this taking up of the cross, adds a word or includes a word, daily. Take up your cross daily and follow me. No disciple is superior to the teacher, but when fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. So here's the challenge this week, sisters and brothers. We're on the precipice of a great season, Lent, springtime, that is meant to be an opportunity for us to grow in our focus and our care for the Lord and to kind of do some spring cleaning in the interior life through 3 practices of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. That's what we're going to be taking up as a church beginning Wednesday with Ash Wednesday, the beginning of this new season. How are you following Christ? Are you simply following him in those very verdant pastures where it's easy to follow him when things are going well, when things are, very peaceful in my life, when I'm not struggling, and then when suffering or struggle comes my way, then I think, well, there goes my Christianity, there goes, all of the effort I put in. How do you give good witness even in times of struggle? Look to Christ and follow him. How can you follow him more intently, more closely? So taking time to prepare for this awesome season of Lent, today, tomorrow, Tuesday, you have 3 excellent days to think about how I am a true disciple of Christ. Am I following him? Am I taking that focus of critique interiorly so that I might remove the beam in my eye before helping my brother or sister in their Christian walk? No disciple is greater than his teacher, but will be like him when brought to fulfillment.